The time is 6:30, and the Louisville Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of February 7th, 2012 is now called to order, and there is a quorum present. Before we start the agenda, I'd like to recognize our Councilman Ferguson in the audience today. Thank you for coming. And also to recognize and welcome Brent Daniels as our newest member of the committee, who replaces Neil in his position. So welcome, Brent.
Thank you.
Agenda item 2 is the approval of the minutes of the January 3rd, 2012 meeting. If there's no corrections or additions, may I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Karen and seconded by Michael. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Agenda item 3 is a public hearing consent agenda for plats. There are 2 plats to be considered today. We will talk about each one separately, but open the public hearing for both plats together, and also the motion will cover both plats. So 3A is the final plat for Castle Hills, Phase 2, Section B, Lot 1R, Block A. It is a 0.91 acre tract designated as townhouse, estate townhouse, ETH, located on the north side of King Arthur Boulevard. Staff?
Essentially, just because this is a consent agenda item, briefly, there are no variances requested, and the plat's been reviewed by staff, and it meets the requirements for the zoning ordinance and the general development ordinance, and staff recommends approval.
Commissioners, questions? Okay, item B is the final plat of Texas Instrument Edition, lots 1R, 3, and 4, Block A. It's a 179.86 acre tract. It's zoned light industrial, located on the southeast corner of Farm to Market Road 3040 and Edmonds Lane.
Pardon my redundancy, but it's basically the same situation. There are no variances, and it also has been reviewed by staff, meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the GDO. We also recommend approval.
Commissioners? Okay, at this time we'll open up the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on either one of these plats, please come forward, sign in, and state your name. Okay, having no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public hearing?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Karen, seconded by Bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Make a motion, recommend approval.
Okay, motion by Karen to recommend approval.
Second.
Who said? Oh, Bill, second by Bill.
Am I going to speak up?
Yes, please.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 4 is a public hearing on zoning. This is consideration of a zoning change request, agricultural open AO to light industrial L1 on a 21.054 acres located on the east side of the north intersection of Valley Parkway and Ace Lane. Further identified as Peter Harmonson Survey, Abstract 530A, Tract 1. This request is being made by the Industrial Development International, LP, the property owner. The case number for this is PZ 2012-0202.
Thank you. Pardon the delay. Okay, as you mentioned, the subject property is a 29.054 acres and is located at the east side of Valley Parkway, at the Valley Parkway and Ace Lane intersection near the Majestic Business Park. It consists of one tract that's currently vacant. The applicant intends to develop the property as a 529,000 570 square foot industrial distribution warehouse and office space. The land surrounding the site is also primarily zone light industrial, with a parcel to the south maintaining the AO designation and one to the north classified as multifamily. Properties abutting the site's southern boundary remain vacant, while property to the north is occupied by Crest Manor Apartments and Advantage Self-Storage, and the Cobb Gas Wells to the east. The proposed facility and rezoning both correspond with the overall development concept and are consistent with Majestic and Convergence developments. There's a small triangular-shaped track located at the hard intersection of Valley and Ace, and is not currently included with the subject property. However, the applicant will be utilizing the tract for signage and entry features at some point in the future. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the zoning change request from AO to LI. And the applicant is present this evening, so either he or I can answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you.
And I have an exhibit of what they propose the elevations, or conceptually what they believe the elevations could look like.
Okay, commissioners, questions? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak about this subject, please step forward, sign in, and state your name. Okay, having no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public hearing?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Karen, seconded by Jared. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Commissioners, any comment on this before we vote? Okay, may I have a motion to approve? Recommend?
I make a motion to recommend approval to the council.
Motion by Karen,
Sorry.
Second.
seconded by Michael. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Agenda item 5 is a public hearing plats. It's a final plat for Artex Park Edition, lots 1 through 15, Block A 67.89 acre tract, zone light industrial, L1, warehouse, WH, and heavy industrial, HI. Excuse me, it is bounded by the East Main Street and Valley Ridge Boulevard on the north, Toyota of Louisville Railroad Park on the east and south, and Railroad Park Street on the west. There are 3 requested variances. David?
Good evening. I've got a copy of the plat on the overhead, just for reference. Valley Ridge Boulevard is over here on the, I guess what would be your left side of the plat, and Railroad Street is down here at the bottom of the plat, and the Railroad Park is along the top of the proposed plat. As was mentioned, this is a 67.89 acre property. It's composed of roughly 31 acres of unplatted property and a portion of 2 platted lots. The owner is proposing to subdivide the property into 15 lots, which will be anywhere from 1.5 acres to about 24.5 acres. The owner has an existing business on lots 14 and 15, which front on Railroad Street, which is down in this area. And the remainder of the property is currently vacant. Lots 1 through 12 will be accessed via a cul-de-sac off of Valley Ridge Boulevard. With the exception of 3 variances, which I'll speak about here in just a moment, the plat does meet all the requirements of our general development ordinance. With regard to the variances, there are 3. The first variance is to allow a 600-foot, actually a cul-de-sac, which is in excess of 600 feet long. and normally that would not be permitted. However, in this particular case, there are some unusual circumstances. The applicant's engineer has designed the industrial subdivision such that the cul-de-sac lines up with an existing median opening on Valley Ridge Boulevard. Also, as was shown on the plat that I had up earlier, and as you can tell to some extent from this diagram, the frontage along Valley Parkway is relatively narrow compared to the depth of the property. So trying to provide more than one street access to Valley Ridge Boulevard would be somewhat problematic in laying out industrial lots. In order to remedy the extra long cul-de-sac, the developer has proposed a private emergency access and fire lane, which will wrap around two of the larger lots toward the front with an entrance and exit back out on Valley Ridge Boulevard. This emergency access will be built up front when the infrastructure is built for the subdivision, so that way anybody who buys any of those lots will already have that emergency access in place, and that emergency access is shown on an easement on the plat, so there's no way that anybody can block it or remove it. It'll actually be part of the subdivision improvements, although it will be privately maintained by the property owners. This was a solution that was worked out between the applicant's engineer and our fire marshal. So in essence, even though the cul-de-sac is longer than we would normally allow, it does provide for a secondary access roughly halfway down the cul-de-sac. The second variance is with regard to driveway spacing. The proposed emergency access is only 110 feet from the what would be the westernmost driveway to Railroad Park. Under normal circumstances, our general development ordinance would require 240 feet between driveways on Valley Ridge Boulevard. However, again, with the necessity of providing the secondary access to mitigate the extra long cul-de-sac, and the fact that it almost has to be where it's being proposed, otherwise it would be bisecting some of the proposed lots. There's not a whole lot of choice with regard to where that access might be. In addition, it is a secondary access. It's at the very end of Valley Ridge Boulevard, although Valley Ridge Boulevard will extend at some point in time, although we don't know when. But because of the nature of this subdivision being light industrial, it's unlikely that the proximity of the two driveways is really going to cause any significant traffic impacts. Third variance is with regard to the same driveway. The driveway to the emergency access is very close to the property line. Under normal circumstances, our general development ordinance does not allow the radius of a driveway to extend in front of an adjoining property. In this particular case, the easternmost radius does extend in front of the railroad park property by about 2 or 3 feet. That particular encroachment in the parkway in front of Railroad Park does not create any problems for the city or for operation of the park or for access in and out of the park. So staff is recommending approval of the plat and all 3 variances. I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can with regard to this plat or the variances. And in addition to that, we do have the applicant's engineer here this evening as well, and he's also available for questions.
Questions? Now, a sound barrier wall was included, right, in some of the,
Yes, there will be an 8-foot masonry screening wall built between the park and this industrial subdivision up front with the initial construction of the roads and utilities.
the only concern or comment I have is about the heavy industry. Any impact on the park or anything like that?
Yeah, Paige, you might want to.
We've tried to address that through, I would say, two different requirements. The first is that with the rezoning of the properties, you'll see that the light industrial mostly buffers the park from the heavy industrial and warehouse uses. So there is kind of that buffer in place. And also through negotiations with the project engineer and the property owner, we have agreed that any individual, in addition to the concrete screen wall, any operations that have outside storage that exceeds 12 feet in height will be required to install an additional screening wall that matches the concrete wall, but it could be another material, but it has to look consistent with the wall that will screen those operations. So for instance, if you have outside storage piled 20 feet tall, you'll need to provide a wall that's roughly 20 feet in height in order to screen that from the park.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
On the emergency vehicle access drive, explain to me again how that's going to work. You say that it's going to be like a fire lane, but the residents will be responsible for maintaining it?
Yes, it'll be a 24 feet wide concrete driveway which loops from the cul-de-sac back around to Valley Ridge Boulevard. It will be built up front with the streets and utilities when the subdivision is built, so it will be in place before any lots are sold. There is a private access easement on the plat, which of course is going to be filed for record, so that from legally, nobody who buys any of the adjoining lots will be able to block or do away with that access or emergency roadway. And again, it'll be there up front before anyone even purchases a lot in the subdivision.
So they'll know that going in, but will it actually be marked like a fire lane? Or?
Yes, it will also be marked as a fire lane.
Just a quick question. Will the screening wall be built as part of the original infrastructure before the plots are sold, or is that something that will come
Yes.
later? Okay.
Yes.
Let me elaborate on that just a little bit, Jared. The 8-foot concrete masonry wall will be built before any of the lots are developed, but as the lots are developed individually, if they have those more intensive uses, they'll build the additional walls at that time.
Okay, thank you, David. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak about this subject, please come forward, sign in, and state your name. Having no one come forward, may I have a motion to close public hearing?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Karen,
A second.
seconded by Jared. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Can I ask David a question
Yes.
before you go any further? What's surrounding this besides the park to the south? What's on the north side? forgive me for my ignorance, but I can't remember.
Well,
There's not a map in here that tells me what the surrounding,
of course, yeah, there's other industrial uses along Railroad Street, of course, on the south side of the development. Of course, the park, well, I guess that would be west. Everything out there is a little bit skewed. But toward Railroad Street, you've got other older, existing industrial-type uses. Of course, you've got the park on the east side.
are they heavy industrial over on Railroad Street, or are they light industrial?
I think there's a mixture.
There's a mix, mostly the light industrial, but some spots of heavy and warehouse.
And then, of course, across the street, we've got some undeveloped, I believe there's agricultural property across the street, and then our new animal shelter is over here about where I'm pointing on the exhibit. And of course, the other side of the park is the Trinity River.
That was it. I just like to know kind of what's going on.
Well, and I should mention as well that as you go to the south of this site, of course, you have the park that wraps around, but then on the south side of the park property, you've got the waste management landfill.
Thank you, David.
Okay, may I have a motion to recommend approval?
Make a motion to recommend approval.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
seconded by Alvin. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 6 is reports. Following this meeting, there will be a Brownsfield Advisory Committee meeting. Let's take, a 5-minute recess?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Karen,
Second. Second.
seconded by Michael. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.